followed Noticer Band on Instagram yet? Because I still have not found a musical act that's more based than Noticer Band. You'll find them at Noticer Band on IG, where at least temporarily yours truly is allowed to participate in public discourse. You'll find me at Real Life Stew. Because, yep, it's real life. I'm not going to try to get the verification badge because then that'll definitely put me on the radar. But we've gone from 30 followers to 14,000 followers in about 10 days, which is fantastic. And that's because we are a breath of fresh air on these meta platforms where we are just not allowed to participate in the conversation. We're not allowed to participate because everything that we do here is dissident to the chokehold from the central banksters and from those that wish to have an economic and, most importantly, a spiritual and demonic grip on this country. And we're just not having it. We're not having it anymore. We're not a part of this. And everywhere that you look, everyone that you talk to, you can see, you can hear, you can smell the American people, specifically white Christian Americans, especially young men, are having the right to free speech trampled on. And we're watching in real time as this United States government codifies Noahidism. These people are weaponizing Jewish Talmudic religious teachings to silence the American people. Quite literally, question Israel, I dare you. Do it on Facebook. Do it on TikTok. Do it on Instagram. If you question Israel, if you name the Jew, you'll be accused of being a racist, whatever that even means anymore. You'll face stiff punishment in Noahide America, and eventually they might even lop your head off, or kill you by way of a weaponized lavalier microphone. They'll kick you out of polite society. You'll lose your job. You'll be debanked. You'll lose friendships, relationships, marriages. But it's not just the government that we have to worry about. If you're noticing, it's also the private sector. It's also all of the little political and media operatives who penetrate clubs and places of business so that they can just lie in wait. And when the time is right, they will stab you right in the back. They'll look you in the face and they'll turn the knife right into your guts. And over the years, we have heard countless stories in which people lose their jobs or get thrown out of school for saying the wrong thing, for thinking wrong, for committing thought crimes. And usually they're turned in by somebody that they think is close to them. We just saw this with Jake Shields. He had a longtime friend, a childhood friend, decades-long friend. He trusted this friend despite the fact that he was a Jew. This is what happens when you invite the Jew into your ranks, by the way. Don't do that. Critical error. Massive mistake. But he thought that he could trust this Jew that was a friend of his for so long, and all the while, in an effort to subvert Jake Shields and to get his podcast defunded, he was calling his sponsors and saying, you know that you're dealing with an anti-Semite. In politics, somebody that you think is fighting alongside of you, they'll turn that knife right into your gut as long as it means advancement of the Talmudic agenda, personal advancement to achieve the aspirations and the goals financially, the platform that they desire, the fame that they long for, the private jets, the lifestyle. We've talked about all of these things, and that's exactly what happened this week in New York City. Members of the New York Republicans Club had this group chat message, which was leaked, in which they committed the crime of talking like a bunch of self-respecting goys. And they were stabbed in the back. And they were stabbed in the back by someone close to them. Rather, by someone who they thought was close to them, someone who they thought was leading them, by someone who they thought was at minimum fighting alongside of them. And that someone was Gavin Wax, a Jew, the Jewish former president of the New York Young Republican Club, who's also worked directly for President Trump in various different capacities. Now, reportedly, Wax coerced a member of the club, a guy called Mark Bartel, to hand over a slew of messages that were sent to private Young Republicans group chats. And in these, the Young Republicans basically proved to the world that they're not the total that we thought that they were. And that's exactly why these messages were released. These guys were slamming Donald Trump over what they described as the burning of the Epstein files. And they were right. And those Zoomers, just like Charlie Kirk in the days and the weeks before his death, were breaking with the Israel-controlled, Jewish-owned political system that they are a part of, and which they probably joined, for the most part at least, with good and patriotic intentions, only to find out that they had entered a world full of black pills, only to realize that their country is in fact occupied and that its founding stock white population is being genocided. So it's pretty obvious from where I sit at this desk every day, big white pill here, that these guys are waking up. And Gavin, the Jew wax, he couldn't have that. So he torpedoed them. He got Bartel to hand over those messages, and he released them to the communist press. According to Politico, who ran a feature story on the group chat, the terms retarded, they all appeared at least 251 times in the message chain, along with other messages that referred to blacks as watermelon people or made proclamations like, "I love Hitler." Who knew that these guys were so based? I mean, they're Republicans after all. But these are not your daddy's Republicans, okay? They're not the country club Republicans. These are Zoomers, members of Generation Z, Generation Zyklon, to be more specific. These people are completely and totally done with being told what to do by a bunch of boomers who hate them, a bunch of Jews and Zionists who hate them. Members of Gen Z, especially white Christian male members of Generation Z, they have spent their entire lives watching as their country has been stolen right out from underneath them. And as they're getting older, they're realizing that their futures have been trampled on by people who hate them, by people who hate their entire religion, by people who hate their entire race, and by people who hate their entire nationality. And they're not going to take it anymore. Of course, neither are we. But unfortunately, no group is a monolith. And we've already seen members of this group chat Gavin Wax and his fellow Jewish character assassinators by coming out and apologizing. It's disgusting. One member of the group chat, Peter Giunta, totally bent over the barrel, saying that, quote, "I am so sorry to those that I offended by the insensitive and inexcusable language that was found within the more than 25,000 messages of a private group chat that I created during my campaign to lead the Young Republicans. While I take complete responsibility, I have had no way of verifying their accuracy, and I'm deeply concerned that the message logs in question may have been deceptively doctored." End quote. What a little weasel. Honestly, what a coward. If there's one thing that I have learned, you stand by the things that you say. You stand by the things that you write. You stand by the takes that you have. You stand by the actions that you take. You stand like a man. Nobody in these group chats should be apologizing. They shouldn't be blaming their sentiments on deceptively doctored messages. They should be standing up and telling the world why they said it and that they meant what they said. Because they were right. They were right all along. And they don't want to see their country be stolen. And these are the things that they are saying privately because they are true. And now you just have this fake apology. What does this guy think is going to happen now, this Guido or whatever his name is? What does he think is going to happen now? Welcome back into the fold. You're now a blessed member of the Zionist Jewish GOP. Kacee Allen has been looking into this. He was once ejected, actually, from a Young Republican club for being too far right. So he has a lot of personal experience, and for those reasons, we've asked him to join us. Kacee Allen is with us. Thank you, Kacee, for coming back. Do you agree? I mean, why would these people...
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stu. This is purely based on the Republican agenda because in January of 2025, I was ousted from the Boone County Republican Party simply because I was reposting Nick Fuentes and David Duke. So it wasn't based on my political opinions. It was based on my reposting of political opinions. And I quickly realized that the Republican Party is no different than the Democratic Party. I mean, they do not value free speech when it fully comes down to it. They don't value anti-Semitic, supposedly, opinions. But anything that's against Israel or even questions legal immigration seems to be against their political agenda, which is not what I signed up for. I signed up for an America First agenda, which means all illegal immigrants deported, and we're going to decouple from this Israeli lobby that's controlling our country. That's what I signed up for.
And because it offends somebody, because it hurts somebody's feelings, you know, what do Republicans actually stand for at this point? These are the people who are willing, more so even than the Democrats, and this whole construct of a two-party system with Republicans and Democrats, with the left and the right, with blue versus red. This is obviously now, and a lot of Zoomers are realizing this, that this is a construct that is meant explicitly to divide. That's its entire purpose. You take this population, you divide it into two immediately, and then you faction them off even more by fracturing those movements and say, well, if you adopt these particular ideologies as a leftist, well, then you are in this group. And as a conservative or as a Republican, if you're pro-life and you won't bend, if you're anti-immigration and you won't bend, well, then you're far right. Then you're a Christian nationalist. Then you're part of this other identifying marker group, and you should be cast over into this corner and isolated so that we know how to best deal with you, how to target you with specific algorithms, how to put you in kind of an echo chamber, how to make sure that you're associating with regular people that feel like you, but that your voice is never really amplified. And I think that that's how they've destroyed America first. That's how they've destroyed really the stock of America, white America, Christian America, is by making sure that those people are isolated, that they're taking arrows, and that they're not allowed to participate in polite society.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, you saw uncensored AI. They got banned. I mean, both of us were affiliates of the organization. We were banned within 2 weeks of that really taking off and becoming the largest organization on X. And you talk about Antunes. He actually was just reinstated recently, but he had 88,000 followers and was banned because of Elon Musk and because of his sycophants who control the algorithm. And luckily Elon actually stepped on and reinstated Antunes. But I think in reality we're seeing a real problem here with free speech, because we're seeing Elon Musk, who about a year ago was pressured by the advertisers, the Israeli lobby, Apple, the American lobby in a sense. But now we're seeing in a sense that Elon Musk is, he will at least accept that Israel is a country that's made some wrongdoings, but he's not someone that will willingly accept that Israel is a country that could be condemned. And Elon Musk being the richest man in the world, I think if he at least had some input on this would make a long way. This would actually make some real progress. But he's someone that is controlled by the Zionists. They're controlled by this American, Israeli-controlled movement, in my opinion.
How do you feel about the construct, the manufacturing of leaders? These people are very specifically chosen. They're very specifically financed. I think that Charlie Kirk was one of those. We've talked off the air about this, full disclosure, but I think that Charlie Kirk was kind of, he was occupied from the very beginning, and he trusted the people that were closest to him. Those people, of course, when they came into the fold, they saw hundreds of millions of dollars at play. TPUSA is a $500 million valuation. It operates with a $140 million annual budget. These people like that. Up to and including his wife, who I think, at least from where I sit, it looks like she was his handler. And they met in Israel on one of her pilgrimages. Later, there was an interview, at which point she said, or he said, no, you're not going to be my employee. Or she said, I'm not going to be your employee. I'm going to be your wife or your girlfriend or whatever else. It turned into a date, and the rest is history. But if you look at the history, and if you look at her involvement and who she's plugged into, she boasts deep ties to Israel herself. Her mother sits on the board of directors of a geofencing company that was literally funded by Israel, the Israeli Foreign Affairs Ministry. And this company spied on Christian Americans, both at church and at TPUSA memorials that were infused with pyrotechnics. Looked like a WWE event. She looks like a terrible actress. But I think that Charlie, from where he was sitting, he really thought that these people loved him. He really thought that these people cared about the mission. He probably loved the hell out of his wife. And I just don't think, at least from where I sit, and this is speculative, of course, but it doesn't appear that that was reciprocated. And so now, after Charlie Kirk was killed, obviously the number one suspect is Israel. They had the motivation. They had the historical precedent. This is what they do. And they had the financial wherewithal. They had the means. They had all the right people in all the right places. And then the emergence of somebody like Brylan Hollihan out of all of this. If you look at Donald Trump and who he is now, the most anti-American president in my lifetime. And I'm not just saying that to be hyperbolic. Literally everything that this guy does, it's all Israel all the time. And that's representative, kind of broad sweeping across our entire government, our Congress and our Senate and our Supreme Court. This is like, we are a Western Jewish colony at this point. And he's very anti-American. But the way that he rose to prominence was by taking the psychological approach of Americans, by taking the frustration of Americans and then vocalizing or verbalizing those things with a big platform as he came down the escalator and started being the regular guy, the human hand grenade that was going to be thrown into the entire political system and blow it up from the inside out. He became the populist president. But looking back in hindsight, it's very clear that that was all AstroTurf. And so now people are really awake to all of that, and they can see this with this kind of heroism or these people that they throw in front of you and say, well, this is now going to be your representative. And the language or the vernacular or the verbiage that's used specifically, the lines that you can walk up to will be dictated by these people. And these people are the ones that you will follow if you want to be, involved with our political process or be accepted in any way or rise to prominence or be a part of a movement. And these things are being articulated to you and demanded by somebody like Brylan Hollyhan, who really can't put two sentences together unless he has a script or a teleprompter on some private jet somewhere while he claims to be one of us. It's just so fake. And this is happening everywhere. It happened with Trump. It's happening with him. So how much of this is fake and AstroTurf?
Well, every bit of it's faced in AstroTurf. Think of someone like Brylan Hollyhan. I'm going there Tuesday to Tucker's speech with the fill-in from Tucker Carlson's, organization. But someone like him does not have the full understanding of what it means to be America First. He is a Nepo baby. He came from someone who was a Republican donor to the establishment. So this isn't a guy that, came out of nowhere like myself, who has no political backing, has no family that's in politics. I literally built my own career based on myself and my personal opinions. Take it as you may. Someone like Brylan Holland, he literally came out of the political establishment. He came out of the GOP establishment. I'm very concerned with how he's going to lead the GOP direction. I think someone like him is going to lead this to a Israel pro-first, basically the way Charlie Kirk left it. And I think Charlie Kirk left this organization with a very questionable stance on Israel. And what happens after this?
I don't think it was questionable. He was saying these things very directly. He was saying these things verbatim. The text messages that have been verified as being authentic. He said, I'm leaving the pro-Israel cause. I am being forced to leave the pro-Israel cause. There was no hemming and hawing. There was no maybe. There was no gray area. It was very black and white. He no longer was going to support a terrorist nation state that's committing an ethnic cleansing and a mass murder and a genocide and what looks to be just nothing more than a real estate transaction that's being enforced by violence. And these people have said that they believe that they were chosen by G-D, whoever the hell that is, to occupy this stolen land and to kill anybody that gets in the way. Jared Kushner has said for years that these are the aspirations of the Jew. Benjamin Netanyahu says that he's on a spiritual crusade. So to anybody who says, well, this is just nothing more than, a nation state defending itself. No. This is very much spiritual and demonic. These Talmudists believe that they have the right, that they were chosen, that they are superior, they are the supremacists, they have the power. And anybody who gets in their way, they just get bombed. Entire rows of housing. And Trump is the guy who's there in Israel saying, we gave you all the weapons. You used them very nicely. I don't even know what a lot of these weapons did. I don't even really know what they were, but we made them for you. We gave a lot of them to Israel, and I applaud you in the way that you used them. Really? Because we can see in 4K from the White House press room where your press secretary stands up and points at the screen behind her and says, this land is now unsustainable to human life. You can't live here. It's in complete and total ruins, and everybody here is dead. Well, not saying who's responsible for doing it. And it turns out that that's Trump admitting to being complicit in a mass murder and in a genocide. And in a serious country, I think that this guy would face a tribunal.
Yeah, so the most that Trump has even said is he actually acknowledged that there are 60,000 Palestinians murdered in the Israeli conflict. But what I have to say to that is that Trump will not acknowledge the Israeli international crimes being done that 130 countries acknowledge at this point. So that our country, our president of the United States will not acknowledge this Israeli genocide of the Palestinians that, like I said, he acknowledges 60,000 people died in this event. I think it's much more. But the fact that Israel is going to usher in this, greater Israel agenda, Israel has no plans at peace here. They plan to usher in this violence. And again, I've never heard any situation in American history where land was stolen peacefully. Israel plans with their Greater Israel Project to steal land from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Sudan. There's no way this can possibly happen peacefully. So I
No,
don't
and they're
care
going
what
to
Trump
do it
says.
at the detriment of America, and they're going to do it with the blood and treasure of Americans. They have 200 so-called peacekeepers. These are armed military personnel. These are American men. They're on the ground there to enforce this peace deal. The whole purpose of the peace deal is to get these Americans shot, to get them killed, to use them as bait, which will be the pretext for the justification that this government, which is run by Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the commander-in-chief, who is the real president, who's really calling the shots, the justification that he needs for full kinetic war against whoever stands in the way of accomplishing the expansionist aspirations of the Talmudic regime, Greater Israel. And then you have Project Esther, which has been deployed here in the United States, which will stifle any criticism of that, and it makes anti-Semitism illegal. What does that tell a guy like me, who, according to CNN, is the #1 anti-Semite on all of the internet? Well, that tells me that I am, by definition, a terrorist. That means that red flag laws will target me. That means that they will aim to disarm me. They'll aim to defund me, take me off the air, and likely take away my freedom by way of incarceration in a gulag without due process, while Noahidism is ushered in by the guy who everybody believed was the populist president and who everybody put all of their hope into because they believed in all the QAnon, because they believed that this person was going to ride in on a white horse and save all of humanity, when effectively the only thing that's going to do that is Jesus Christ, and putting the cross at the center of everything that we do, and flipping these tables and braiding our whips and chasing these money changers the f*** out of here. Excuse my language. We're on the radio. I shouldn't be talking like that anyways. And it's really one of the things that I got to deal. Pray for me on my language. But do you agree? I mean, Noahidism, Project Esther, using these people as bait, that'll be the justification needed as a pretext to send the Marine Corps right in there to Gaza to finish what's already been started and kill everything with a pulse, like they did in Fallujah under Mad Dog Mattis, when we were told about weapons of mass destruction. And we were just going to go kill these unsympathetic these brown people that nobody can relate to and that nobody cares about. Do you think that this really stops with brown people in Palestine? Do you think that this really stops? No. The essence of the forever war means expanding the war. We don't have a war in Ukraine and a war in Gaza and a war in Palestine and a war in the West Bank and a war in Lebanon and a war in Venezuela, which wasn't on my bingo card. We don't have all of these different separate proxy wars. What we have is one war, and the war is good versus evil. And the objective here is to conquer and overtake America and to subvert Christianity and to destroy Christendom altogether.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I think the thing when it comes to Venezuela, especially, like, the Trump administration is purely after their gold and oil reserves. So, like, they're not just invading Venezuela after their own, oh, we see illegal immigrants, we want to bomb them. We see like 5 guys on a boat, we want to destroy them. Like, that's not the truth. Like, they actually are going after Venezuela because Venezuela is the #1 when it comes to oil reserves in the entire world. So that's why they're going after them. And
I agree to a certain extent that obviously we have a history. The historical precedent is that we steal commodities from people during regime changes, and we use it, the end of an American taxpayer-funded gun barrel. And with violence and technology, we go steal commodities. But I think Venezuela, there's more to that. If you look at Muammar Gaddafi, and if you look at Bashar al-Assad, and if you look at Saddam Hussein, and if you look at Adolf Hitler, if you look at Vladimir Putin, if you look at Mexico and Venezuela, you look at governments, Ukraine, a great example. You look at governments that were rejecting or pushing away from the idea of a one world governance, specifically the Rothschild criminal central banking cabal and private equity firms that are run and owned and operated by Jews in Israel. And they wanted their own system of monetary exchange. They believed in the idea of nationalism, which has to be murdered for the Jew to accomplish their goal. You can't have nationalism. The idea of nationalism is basically the enemy of Noahidism and Talmudism. And so all of these people kind of met the same fate. In Venezuela, you had a guy who literally said that Benjamin Netanyahu was a fake Jew and a crook from Poland, and he was rejecting the idea of the central banksters and fiat currency and all that. Trump said that the oil coming out of Venezuela was nasty, that it was bad, it was low quality. So I think that this is really more of a regime change at the request of the Jew, because the Talmudic agenda cannot succeed in Venezuela. And just like Mexico, There were 100 and how many were there? 141 political assassinations. Was that what it was? 141 political assassinations leading up to the installation of Claudia Scheinbaum, who is a Jew. How does a Jew properly represent a Mexican population that's predominantly Catholic? Like 77%. And it used to be 95%, but even that's been watered down. The same is true in Ukraine. These people were starting to adopt what they called more pro-Russia policies, which means more nationalism, the rejection of the central banksters. And so in 2014, our CIA effected a violent coup, and then they installed Volodymyr Zelensky, another Jewish puppet government. They're doing this everywhere. They're doing it all over the place, and I think that that's the real objective with Venezuela.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real objective, but I will say, like, in the perspective of the Trump administration, they for sure want their oil and gold reserves. Like, they may say that there's a terrorist regime and, they may bomb 5 to 6, people on a boat that's headed to Venezuela after trafficking narcotics to the United States. But I really do think this is an agenda to really take their oil and gold reserve, because Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, even got an offer to take Venezuela's oil, gold reserves, and basically a majority of their economic prosperity. But someone like Marco Rubio, he's a neocon. He doesn't want just basically Maduro's oil and gold reserves. He wants Maduro to surrender as a prisoner. So that's my problem with the Trump administration and someone like Marco Rubio. I think someone like Marco Rubio, if you see his roots, he is a pure neocon, and he's not someone that's after the American interests. He's after capturing this imperial interest that I don't think Americans signed up for.
Yeah, and then who are they going to give the oil reserves to? Who are they going to give access to these commodities? It's going to be to the Jew. Just like when we armed Ukraine, now who sits on top of all the mineral deposits in Ukraine? Well, Trump gave them to BlackRock. Now who sits at the controlling powers of the Panama Canal? Well, the Jew. Donald Trump
China
gave
and the Jew,
the Panama Canal to Larry Fink and BlackRock. Who sits on top of the world's largest lithium deposit, which happens to be in Western North Carolina after a hurricane, stalled over Western? Well,
Argentina.
That's BlackRock. Yeah, I mean,
BlackRock.
I don't think that necessarily we're after these commodities for the enrichment or the betterment of Americans and their prosperity, but instead the people who are the paymasters of those that are using the military and the military-industrial complex and the American war empire to prop up the Talmudic agenda and the Israeli genocidal machine. So I think that at the end of the day, this is only a prediction here, but it's coming from, based on historical precedent, that those oil reserves will somehow end up magically being controlled by the Carlyle Group or, Blackstone or BlackRock, who, by the way, are allowed to buy residential properties in America. Why is that?
But Stu, do you think that's like? Do you think that's actual properly? Like, do you think that American, international companies can buy American property and American companies? Do you think that's right, or you think that's obviously, anti-American?
It's anti-American 100%. Why should private equity? Do you know why they're allowed to do that? Do you know why AIPAC is allowed to meddle in our politics without registering as a foreign agent? Why are they allowed to do that? Why are there special exceptions for this country? And why is asking these questions considered anti-Semitic or somehow racist or like I'm a Jew hater? No, what I hate is everything that these people are bringing to my country. I hate what they're bringing to my children. I hate what they're bringing to our economic apparatus. I hate what they're bringing to our political class. I hate the death and the destruction and the pedophilia and the rape and the molestation and the usurious tactics that have a grip on every single American. Like all of the strife, all of the conflict, and all of the misery and suffering that's being brought to virtually every single American family can be pointed right back to the source of it all is the Jew. The source of all of it is Israel. It's all housed on Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv, which boasts the front lines of the military-industrial complex. It seems very simple to me, and nobody can argue it. I hear Alex Jones talking about radical Islam all the time. Okay, well, Iran doesn't have a delivery system for a nuclear warhead pointed our direction. Israel, on the other hand, does. They have the only undeclared nuclear program, which JFK was trying to stop, and look at what happened to him. He met the same fate as Charlie Kirk in the same way that Charlie Kirk did. In front of his people, in front of a large crowd, on national television, in broad daylight. And then, of course, the feds, the FBI, they give us this grandiose story about a lone wolf shooter. The same lone wolf shooter type scenario that was in Butler, Pennsylvania, when Trump got half of his ear shot off by a high-velocity, high-powered rifle that's just now magically all cured. I have... with our previous guest, I was talking about a scar that I have on my knee from when I was a child, from a little cut from a box cutter that was sitting on my dad's couch. It's still there. Trump's ear is just all better now. These people are the empire of lies. They will lie to you through and through. They will create these false flags and completely fake events and talk about Valhalla and all of these other things, while at the same time completely choking out all of your individual liberties and freedoms. Do you think that we're going to be able to vote our way out of this? Do you think that there's a way to infiltrate and somehow change over decades the course of this crime syndicate that we know as a federal government? Or do you think that it just needs to be completely abolished and replaced?
It needs to be completely abolished and replaced. I'll say that, but I will be in the, particularly better persistence that I'm with someone like Thomas Massey, who's my Republican congressman, who is the only Republican congressman besides Marjorie Taylor Greene who will call APAC. But I will say, besides that, this is going to take something that's going to be a full systemic effort of my generation, Gen Z, to say, we don't support Israel. We don't support this, genocide, and we don't support the infiltration of our American system. Until we actually come to the consensus on that, I don't think we're going to get anywhere as a country. But based on what I just told you, I do think about 60 to 70% of people are on the same page. I'm actually interviewing Jeb Baugh, who was the young man who was a North Dakota State alumni who was, at the event, which Charlie Kirk would have taken place. He basically asked Glenn Beck a question about Israel and said, I don't think Israel is in America's best interest. I think the, AIPAC and the Israeli lobby is against what it means to be an American. And what did Glenn Beck do?
Yeah, he froze.
He froze. He took off his jacket. He had no idea what to do. So I'm going to Charlie Kirk's thing Tuesday. I'm interviewing Jeb Baugh in a few days from now. So, people like
Is
these
that a
Zionists,
TPUSA event? Is that a Turning Point event?
So yeah, it's a Turning Point event. But the only reason I'm going to
don't bring your
because
cell
Tucker
phone.
Carlson, he's the only person that will actually speak about these Israeli issues. Everybody else will not say anything.
Don't bring your cell phone, because that geofencing spy organization that's literally funded by the Israeli Foreign Affairs Ministry, that's apparently connected to the Kirk family by way of, Kirk's wife's mother, who sits on the board of directors, they will spy on you. If you were at that memorial, that pyrotechnic WWE show, it's already happening to you. If you go to church at any TPUSA connected church, particularly in the southwestern part of this country, you're being spied on. These people are harvesting your data and they're sending it to your adversaries. They're taking unwillingly and without your permission, your personal data and sending it to Israel. Who would be okay with that?
That's so wrong. I mean, I'm a Catholic myself, and my church has not been infiltrated by this, thankfully. But I know so many churches that have been infiltrated by this. I mean, this is an Israeli propaganda campaign to promote this, pro-Christian Zionist agenda to get Americans to fall in line with something that's so unpopular amongst everybody. I mean, that's what we're seeing, folks. I mean, we're seeing something that nobody agrees with. We're seeing, the right and the left in my generation disagree with this Israeli occupation of our government. And, I might get banned from this. I might get banned from my TikTok. That's okay. I make a living off this, but I think the actual truth is more important than, what I have myself. So I really do think that when enough Americans step up against this Zionist occupation, we will see truth. And I really
just don't ever back down.
2 months ago, we're very close.
Just don't ever back down. Don't ever apologize. Stand on your principles. Stand on your convictions. Roll your shoulders back. Don't try to be a part of any kind of a political movement. Be a thought leader. Be a pioneer. Be the machete that's going through the forest and just cutting down everything in your way, where you're blazing a trail of people, for people behind you to easily navigate, or to navigate more easily without all of the obstructions and without all of the lies coming at them. Stand on your own too.
Stu,
what
would
is this?
You say to younger generations that, like myself, who, are America first, but you see people like Gavin Wax, who that's a, somewhat of a majority of the population. What would you say to those people to try to get them to
That's
be
what
more
I mean. That's exactly what I was telling you. I
first?
would tell them all the same thing. Stand on your own too. Do not be afraid to call out what your eyeballs are seeing. Do not be afraid to stand up for your country, for your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. Do not allow yourself to be self-censored. Is the worst thing ever. Put the cross at the center of everything that you do. Roll your shoulders back, hold your head up, take on the beast. Be the David that takes on Goliath. It's a big system. It's a big problem. It's a big system, but we're running out of time. They're here. They're knocking on the door. Why are we on defense? We should be on offense. We should be taking it to them. You know, this has been the mantra of this fake government, this murderous corporate crime syndicate for years. Well, we've got to go there and we've got to kill them before they come here and kill us. I'm sorry, but I don't see it. I don't see anybody else coming here to kill us minus this group of Talmudic people, the synagogue of Satan that were called out by my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, in Revelations. I see you here on X. What is this on your profile? Is that what I think it is? Is that the TMZ people?
Yeah, so I go on TMZ about once a month. I'm pretty connected with them, but yeah, they give me interviews about like daily events. So I talk about Charlie Kirk, everything going on. I try to give the most right-wing opinion on their network that they even possibly give me. I'm surprised they even allow me to have a platform because I'm like very far right. Like I said, I can't even believe I even have a check mark at this point because I'm like I said, I am like, you know, so far against the establishment that I can't believe I haven't been targeted at this point. But
that's what I mean by going on offense. That's what I mean. There you are in the belly of the beast on TMZ, you know, giving conservative, righteous, Christian talking points as an American, as a young person, as a Zoomer. You represent the future of this country. Don't soften the message. Don't change your message. Never negotiate. Never capitulate with these people. Ever. Ever. Say what needs to be said. Let them call you a shock jock. Let them call you controversial or fringe. Let them tell you that you're Fed posting. All of those things. Do not listen to it. It's noise. Follow your heart.
What's funny about me is though I have a separate job. I make money. I own a business. I make plenty of money. So like my opinions are not subjective to what I make on a monetary basis. I am as free as it gets. I'm a free American and I plan to run for office in the near future. So I would say to everyone who, you know, is an adversary of mine, watch out.
Yeah, I like that. Good. And don't ever take money from these people. Don't ever take Jew money. Kacee Allen, make sure that you give him a follow. There he is over on X. Kacee is Kacee. R is his middle initial, Allen. Kacee R. Allen. Kacee R. Allen. Make sure that you get it. This is the future of our country. Be engaging with these people and make sure that you are propping them up and encouraging them along the way. They are the sharpest weapon in our arsenal. We'll be back. Stick around.